generally they've been willing to help them as much as they can without getting caught. But people in Europe and other parts of the world have noticed. But in the end, this peace, if it's possible and doable, will happen between Ukraine and Russia, and we're willing to do whatever we can to help bring it to an end.
Can I ask an ASEAN question?
A what?
An ASEAN
Yeah,
question.
of course. That's why we're here, right?
Can I ask you one more quick question on Russia? Just these ideas that were put on the table today, would you characterize them as new ideas from the Russian side that the Trump administration had not heard before?
Yes. Well, I think maybe, yes. I think it's a new and a different approach. Again, I wouldn't characterize it as something that guarantees a peace, but it's a concept that, you know, we'll take back to the president today and here as soon as I finish with you.
I just wanted to know, what was your sense today after your meeting, the PMC meeting with the ASEAN foreign ministers, about how big an irritant the tariffs are to U.S. relations, both with ASEAN as a bloc, but individual countries?
Well, I think, look, two things to understand. Number one is these letters that are going out and these trade changes are happening with every country in the world. I mean, basically every country in the world. The president's been very clear, and he has been, frankly, if you go back to videos of him speaking in the 80s about his feeling that the state of global trade is unfair to the United States, that for far too long we allowed these imbalances to develop. We are the world's largest consumer. We're a huge market where people export things to us. And with these huge and unsustainable imbalances have developed with countries all over the world. And so this is a globalized effort to reset U.S. trade in a way that's beneficial to the United States, and not just in dollars and cents, but also in our own domestic industrial capacity. So this has been made clear to countries around the world. We were coming up upon the middle of this month, and the markets demand certainty, and so these letters set a baseline. Now, obviously, that does not foreclose the opportunity for individual countries to enter into negotiations that perhaps can adjust those numbers. But in the end, the president still remains very committed to a rebalancing of trade that's fair to America, and also at the same time protects our own industrial capabilities.
Right, but you're here today meeting with ASEAN countries, and those countries, almost all of them, got letters this week. And so,
but anywhere in the world, well, I guess my point to you is anywhere in the world that would have traveled this week, they got a letter. So everybody got a letter. And in some cases, some of these countries got a letter where their tariff rate is lower than some of their neighbors or maybe a country somewhere else in the world. So it might even serve as an advantage. But of course it's raised, it's an issue. But I wouldn't say it solely defines our relationship with many of these countries. There are a lot of other issues that we work together on. And I think there was great enthusiasm that we were here and that we're a part of this. A reminder that next week we'll have another high-ranking delegation, including Secretary Lutnick, Deputy Landau from the Department of State, will be traveling to Japan for the World Expo there, and will be involved in talks there as well. You know, my very first meeting, I don't know if you know this, but when I was sworn in, I went to the State Department, I gave a speech on these steps, and then my first meeting right out of the box was with Japan, South Korea, and India. And we've repeated that meeting numerous times since then with that group and attention to others. We have a running internal joke with my counterpart from Japan. I have literally now seen him about 8 to 12 times. And our joke is that we see each other more than we see our own families. And so you know, these engagements are very important to us, and we're going to continue to stay very committed, because this, as I said to all of our partners, this notion or idea that the United States would ever be distracted by the Indo-Pacific or even Southeast Asia is impossible. You can't be, maybe it doesn't always, wars get more attention, but it's impossible to not be focused. This is where much of the story of the 21st century is going to be written. This is where 2/3 of economic growth is going to happen over the next 25 or 30 years. And many of the countries in Southeast Asia, not only are they some of the youngest countries in the world, but they're about to see an enormous expansion of their labor markets, their labor pool, number of workers. This is a historic, once-in-a-generation opportunity, not just for these countries to revolutionize themselves from an economic standpoint, but further strengthen our relationship. We have over 6,000 American companies that have invested heavily in these economies over the last 20 or 30 years. We're not abandoning those relationships. On the contrary, we want to strengthen and build upon them. And there are a bunch of other issues, and certainly trade is part of it. But there are a lot of other issues that we work together on, and we continue to highly prioritize that. The story of the 21st century will be written in the Indo-Pacific. And the countries represented here today, along with others that have joined to be a part of this, represent some of not just important markets, some of the most important partners we have in the world.
Last question. This is obviously a very quick trip. Do you intend to come back to Asia or the Southeast Asian area on a longer trip sometime in the future, near future?
Sure, absolutely. This was a great trip because we got to see, 12, 13, 14, 15 countries that are all here. So these forums, there'll be a leaders forum here in October, which we look forward to being a part of it. We've also engaged with many of our colleagues here at different forums. Many of them, for example, not just at the G7 foreign ministers, they also attended on the sidelines of NATO, at the foreign minister level, and also at the leaders level. So we'll continue to engage with the region, both in Washington and other places around the world, and in our return travel here. So we'll be back in addition, and it's not just me. The Secretary of Defense has been out here. The Deputy Secretary of State will be here next week. So we'll look for other opportunities. Obviously, the Leaders Forum will be here in October as well. So we'll be here, we'll be engaged as we do every single day.
Secretary, there's a review right now by the administration of the AUKUS deal that the last administration forged, and I think that raises some questions among Asia-Pacific allies and partners about the U.S. defense commitment here in Asia. What do you say to people who...
Well, look, anytime a new administration takes over, there's a review of all policies. I mean, policies are a review doesn't necessarily mean you're against it. We did a review at the State Department of our diplomatic presence around the world because I wanted to know which consulates and embassies could be adjusted both in their size and in their presence. Could we consolidate a presence? We did a review. We haven't closed any embassies, but we did a review. So just because you're reviewing something doesn't mean you're going to necessarily act on it. It means you're a new administration and you want to take an audit and an account about all the policies that you've inherited and policies, how they've changed since the last time you were in office when it comes to the Trump administration. So, but our policies on AUKUS have not changed. What else? That's it.
Are you hopeful on a Gaza ceasefire in the next few days?
Well, we're hopeful. I mean, in the end, we're hoping they'll move to proximity talks. It appears that generally the terms have been agreed to, but obviously now you need to have talks about how you implement those terms. And I spoke to Steve Woodcock last night, and he's optimistic that proximity talks will begin fairly soon, expedited and facilitated by the Qataris and the Egyptians. And so, but we've seen talks fall apart in the past at that stage of proximity talks. So I think we're closer, and I think perhaps we're closer than we've been in quite a while, and we're hopeful. But we also recognize there's still some challenges in the way, and one of the fundamental challenges is Hamas's unwillingness to disarm, which would end this conflict immediately. If they just release the hostages, there shouldn't be a single hostage. There shouldn't be a single hostage body still left. If they release that and disarm, this would end. But that said, the Israelis have shown some flexibility here, and so I think we've seen progress made. So we're hopeful, but we also understand that these things have been difficult for a reason. But we're hopeful that they can move to proximity talks pretty quickly and go from there and have a ceasefire in place in the near future.
Are there any sticking points from the Israeli side, such as on aid or the withdrawal of Israeli troops? Where does that stand?
Well, the sticking point would be on the Hamas side. I mean, Hamas basically wants Israel to withdraw completely and allow them to go back to being Hamas. Obviously, the Israelis aren't going to agree to that. I think the easiest way to end this, that's not what the agreement is, but the easiest way to end this is for all the hostages to be released and for Hamas to disarm. Absent that, the Israelis and Hamas, through the mediation of Qatar and Egypt, have reached an understanding on a 60-day ceasefire and some elements of that with regards to humanitarian aid through international agencies resuming and so forth. But now you've got to have talks about how do you implement that, and that's where this has fallen apart in the past. We're hopeful that'll work out. We're doing everything we can. We'd like to see a ceasefire. The president's been clear he wants to see a ceasefire. And we've invested a lot of time and energy. I know Steve Woodcock works hours every single day on this topic alone. So we've invested a lot of time into that. We'd like to see it happen. Okay? All right.
AI impersonator review, anything you can say about who was behind that?
No, I mean, anybody, it could happen to anybody. I mean, everybody, especially if you're a public figure, they just got to get enough, like they could take the interview out of here today and change it around. So, but, as soon as I found out about it last week, I referred it to the FBI, diplomatic security, and others. It won't be the last time you see me or others, for that matter. Maybe some of you will be impersonated. But it's just a reality of this AI technology that's going on, and it's a real threat.
How did you find out?
Oh, somebody called me. It was a senator that called me and said, "Hey, did you just try to reach me?" And actually sent me a voice recording. It doesn't sound, I mean, it doesn't really sound like me. If you fell for that call, but maybe there was a better one that I didn't see, But
it was on Signal, right? So does this?
I don't know how they got it or if it was a voicemail. No, it doesn't matter what form you use. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's Signal or anything else.
There are more secure methods that in Signal you can create an account with an email address, and that was one of the reasons that they were able to reach out to people and then use the voicemail messages to imitate your voice.
I've had people in the past ask me if I texted them. Like within days of becoming Secretary of State, I had foreign ministers calling the State Department asking if I had just texted them. So I don't know, guys. This is just the reality of the 21st century with AI and fake stuff that's going on. It's generally I communicate with my counterparts around the world through official channels for a reason, and that's to avoid this.
Do you have any sense of who the perpetrators are?
No, I mean, you're not gonna have any sense. The perpetrator is somebody with an AI software. That could be anybody in the world. My sense is the target really isn't me. The target is the people they're reaching out to try to trick them into a call or whatever, and who knows what they do with it. But you're going to hear about this for a long time. I mean, not just me. It'll happen to other people because all you need is a recording of someone's voice, and you can come up with it. So, yeah, it's just one of the other great challenges posed to us by AI. I'm sure there's a lot of positive aspects to AI as well, but this ain't one of them.
You said, Secretary, that the weapons pause by the Pentagon in the narrow scope in which it occurred made sense, but was it a decision on which the State Department was consulted, or what was the level of?
No, it wasn't no. I said it was a review. It was a pause pending review, and so we were constantly. The Pentagon is constantly reviewing stockpiles, especially after an engagement such as the one we had in the Middle East. So. My point is that there wasn't a policy decision not to give weapons to Ukraine. It was a review in which certain munitions were temporarily paused for that review and for that purpose. And this reporting out there that there was no awareness of it is not true. Now, but no policy decision was made. In essence, no one ever said we're not sending weapons to Ukraine. That's been appropriated by Congress, and that's continued. And that continues to this very day. But when you're doing a review, there's some period of time in which during that review, it's possible that some shipping is slowed down, not stopped. But because it's being reviewed, someone would say, okay, well, let's not send it today. Let's wait a couple days because we're conducting the review of that particular munition. So that's what happened here, and I think it was not appropriately reported initially. But nonetheless, it's pretty clear now that review has occurred, and as the President's made clear, there's been no change to our posture with regards to providing what we have available. Now, I would remind everybody, again, I go back to the point I made, and that is that there are certain things that Ukraine needs, like Patriot batteries. Those are available. There are multiple countries in Europe that possess Patriot batteries that they could share with Ukraine, and we're actively, talking to countries about doing that.
Anyone specifically?
Well, the Spaniards have one. They're really far from Ukraine, and they have one. The Germans have, others have. I'm not signaling them out, but I'm just telling you those are two that I know. There are other Patriot batteries, and there are other opportunities. Countries that have ordered Patriot batteries that are about to receive shipments of them. It'd be great if one of them volunteered to defer that shipment and send it to Ukraine instead. So we're looking for creative ways to provide them these defensive weapons that they would need. Now, that's not going to help them with the drone attacks. That's a very different technique that you use in order to bring those down, but it would help them with some of these missile attacks that we're seeing. Again, these are defensive weapons.
The reduction in force of the State Department, is that something that we should expect to happen while you are traveling, or is it something you want to be in Washington, D.C. while it happens for?
No, I mean, we've already notified that to Congress. Understand our reduction in force was done, I'm very proud to say, I would argue probably in the most deliberate way of anyone that's done one. We went very specifically through and reorganized the State Department. And when you reorganize the State Department, there were certain bureaus we wanted to empower the regional bureaus, and there were certain bureaus, these functional bureaus, that were closed. And so it made sense so that's been notified to Congress and to the workforce for some period of time. And so we've been ready to implement it, pending a court decision, which now has been reached. There's some timing associated with how you do that, how you actually implement it. But our intent is to move forward with the plans that we've notified Congress of weeks ago, and that we took months to design.
Will the numbers be the same as what was notified to Congress?
Sure. I mean, our plan that we notified the Congress is what we intend to do, and then we'll have achieved our again, the reduction in force is a consequence of the reorg. It's not a consequence of trying to get rid of people. But if you've closed the Bureau, you don't need those positions. Understand that some of these are positions that are being eliminated, not people. Some of them are unfilled positions potentially, or positions that someone took early retirement. And therefore are now or about to be unfilled. So, but we took a very deliberate step to reorganize the State Department to be more efficient and more focused. That's been publicly noticed to Congress months ago. We've been prepared to implement it, and the thing that slowed us down was a court decision by a district judge in the Northern District of California. The Supreme Court has ruled on that, and so we're prepared to act on it. It'll come as no surprise, and that is our reorg. That'll be the extent of what we intend to do. And we're already operating under the new organizational structure as is for the most part, so this will further enhance that. Okay? Thank you. Thank you.
Voilà, c'était donc chef diplomatie américaine et comme nous connaissons, nous toujours dit nous ça information c'est non-stop lié sur réseau ça. Depuis li dans la rue n'a suivi ici là bas parler nous pral chercher l'information ça dans la rue avec secrétaire Marco Rubio qui dans une tournée internationale et il a rencontré la presse, il a parlé avec le ministre des Affaires étrangères Wislan avec représentants d'une série de pays Asie. Côté qu'il a parlé de décision administration Donald Trump prend concernant tarifs, mesures de sécurité, nouvelles stratégies, renforcement présence à travers diplomates qui ont gagné dans différentes ambassades qui ont gagné à l'étranger, mesures que vous prend pour restructurer le département d'État, décision que vous avez de bon côté département ou bien responsable justicieux à travers la Cour suprême particulièrement, qui va gain de cause à l'administration Donald Trump qui est capable de continuer avec politique révoquée, moun qui estime qui trop en dedans administration fédérale là, procéder à changement ou bien à restructuration institution ça yo. Marco Rubio dit qu'on y a là yo t'a une décision li sorti en faveur yo va implémenter. Donc il dit également changer ou bien réviser batterie, réviser personnel que vous gagnez dans différentes ambassades. Cela ne veut pas dire qu'il y a pu fermer ambassade. C'est de nouvelles stratégies que il y a pu utiliser pour voir comment que il y a plus efficace dans présence à travers international là. Et changement de gouvernement, il toujours porter changement dans structure, dans palace, dans mode de fonctionnement pays en ambassade par rapport à l'autre pays. C'est ça que chef diplomatie Marco Rubio lui fait connaître. Il dit cependant, il a pu continuer dans bon amis avec une série de pays. Il parlait du tarif là tout. Il dit tout côté représentant américain arrivé dans pays étranger jeudi à lettre dans poche ou bien dans valise pour distribuer bay pays ça pour rappeler position américaine concernant question tarif là, sous affaire sécurité avec augmentation de budget en termes de dépenses pour sécurité yo toujours engagé pays étrangers yo. Il dit tout dans ça qui concerne les négociations pour la paix entre Israël et Hamas là, chef l'État américain li pa vle la guerre, la travaille pour la paix et yo espérer et que Hamas a répondre à proposition qui fait là pour que yo capable avancer vers processus la paix. Yo tout Israël gen bagay que li pa accepter qui pas en faveur pardon. Dans le cadre discussion pour la paix qu'il a fait entre Hamas ensemble avec pays Israël. N'a pas rappelé que le premier ministre israélien li pas bon ici, li dit tout, il y a une stratégie ensemble avec tactique commune entre États-Unis et Israël qui c'est dans le cadre de combat pour la paix, c'est forcer Hamas chita botab négociation et puis il y a travail ensemble États-Unis ensemble avec le pays Israël d'après premier ministre israélien qui croit que li gagne accord, li gagne entente avec chef l'État américain dans stratégie là. Marco Rubio dit nous espérer que Hamas a contribué dans processus dans démarche pour la paix selon chef diplomatie américaine qui croit que il a pu passer en revue troupes que ont gagné à l'étranger dans affaires diplomatie n'a parlé où donc il a pu garder pour qui ça que il mérité changer d'après monsieur Marco Rubio li tout président li clair dans position là li souhaitait que gagner un autre fonctionnement avec le monde international là pendant que la parlé il dit que et c'est pas intention pour continuer la guerre avec l'autre pays. Dans le même sens, tout, il faut connaître que et il parlé de questions loi sous affaires immigration. Mais l'État de la Floride, ensemble avec d'autres États encore aux États-Unis, ils ont gagné plan pour renforcer ou bien pour même changer loi sous question immigration en dedans pays. Cependant, la Cour suprême lui prend décision là pour lui demander la Floride gouverneur pour arrêter dans limite li, à savoir loi qui était là pour ne pas faire changement là-dedans selon dernière information yo. Et nous pouvons connaître que tout pendant chef diplomatie américain li à l'étranger, eh bien selon dernière information, il y a 6 autres pays après une trentaine environ que le chef d'État a annoncé qu'il recevoir lettre concernant augmentation tarif douanier yo, il y a 6 autres pays qui fait recevoir lettre par là tout d'après dernière information. Augmentation tarif douanier ça, li plus passé 30% selon toujours information qui sorti bon côté administration américaine qui lui-même a repassé, a regarder ça qui concerne les relations avec l'autre pays. Autour de la situation Ukraine qui est en bataille avec la Russie, information était sortie que les États-Unis ont décidé de suspendre l'aide militaire à pays ça de matériel de guerre qui était capable d'utiliser, qui était capable d'aider dans la bataille, dans défendre tête contre la Russie. Eh bien, la Russie était tout profité là pour bombarder le pays Ukraine pendant 2 derniers jours, mais de manière à outrance, avec plus passé un millier de drones, et parce que ils ont utilisé 700 avant-hier soir, hier soir, ils ont utilisé environ 400, plus une quarantaine missiles balistiques que ils ont lancés, surtout dans des régions proches capitale là, ensemble avec capitale là qui s'équivent, selon information yo. Marco Rubio dit, eh bien, ils ont pris une décision pour capable analyser qui ça qui ont gagné en stock, mais il était slow down comme si processus pour voyer aide militaire par pays Ukraine. Pas rien qui te prend comme décision pour capable bloquer, pour camper aide militaire ça. Pourtant, c'est ça information te dit. Chef diplomatie dit, pendant qu'il a passé en revue, pendant qu'il a analysé qui ça qui gagne en stock, comment qu'il capable continuer aider Ukraine, gagner un processus qui ont tiré slow, mais il a passé outre de décision concrète qui était voté pour capable continuer aider Ukraine selon déclaration chef diplomatie américaine n'a parlé de M. Marco Rubio qui font petit coup de jet tout sur ça qui passait dans la côte Texas. Eh bien, en tout était là pour nous dire que dernière information qui baille là, il y a 173 personnes qui portent disparu dans le cadre inondation si là, il y a 5 jeunes filles toujours qui ont participé dans le camp, eh bien, yo même qui toujours disparaît avec une moniteur, une directeur camp qui t'a organisé et programme de formation sanitaire candidat. Donc c'est comme ça situation lui-même liée. Marco Rubio, il tourne sur question de sécurité. Il dit que, par exemple, conseil de batterie qui aide ça ou les batteries patriotes, qui est capable d'aider l'Ukraine pour lui défendre tête les pieds bien toujours, intercepter quelques coups d'armes ou bien drones que là où il a lancé sur, même si il n'est pas aidé dans les affaires missiles. Mais Dronio est capable d'aider selon chef diplomatie qui fait comprendre que l'Espagne, l'Allemagne, ils ont conseillé de battre comme ça, même si l'Espagne est loin Ukraine, mais l'Espagne possède des batteries, il est capable d'aider également à pays Ukraine selon chef diplomatie pays les États-Unis qui parlait de réorganisation du département d'État ensemble avec structure que il a pu mettre en place journée jeudi comme nous disons chef diplomatie américaine li en tournée sur le plan international. Il dit que décision département ou bien la Cour suprême prend li a facilité la tâche de commencer déjà à étudier possibilité pour réorganiser structure fonctionnement département d'État. Il dit que conseil de monde que vous voyez aller, ça ne veut pas dire que fermer conseil des départements en deux ministères là, c'est dit que il obligé révoquer moun sa ou tacite, mais gagne moun qui capable perdre du job yo, gagne tout y a réaffecté à l'autre département, gagne tout qui capable obligé prendre retraite yo parce que si yo ferme une quantité de département, ça veut dire que pas gagne job pour moun sa ou selon chef diplomatie américaine qui tout abordé question yo mime là comme si nous avait dit yo copier monsieur nous connaît avec technologie AI là qui capable faire que moi-même capable parler avec ou là ou capable yo mettre photo moi ou bien yo prend voix moi et puis yo trafiquer li yo fait que m'a dit deux paroles que m pas dit OK ça moi saute dit là c'est pas ça que yo dit yo fait me dire l'autre parole et bien c'est ça yo fait avec Marco Rubio yo prend photo monsieur yo prend voix monsieur et puis yo voyez le bail sénateur yo voyez le bail quelques pays étrangers comme quoi c'est Marco Rubio qui a adressé avec quel pays ça monsieur dit c'est grâce à un sénateur qui était fait le connaître que est-ce qu'il était voyé un voice bali est-ce qu'il était parlé avec elle dans message pour le demander quelques bagages. Monsieur dit non, c'est à ce moment-là il vient reconnaître que il copier voix li, genre que technologie et ça que yo voulait développer c'est copier yo imiter Marco Rubio, yo fait comme David dit un portrait monsieur yo fait la parler. Donc les ça yo obligé commencer prendre disposition. Monsieur dit yo remettre li by FBI département qui occupe des affaires enquête sur malversation ça yo pour capable joindre qui ça a passé exactement. Donc c'est comme ça situation liée madame monsieur information pas camper sur réseau ça Pstars FM radio télévision ça fait nous s'ouvre aider nous capable ba nous advertising que gain ba nous publicité que gain et de vendre image. OK, et puis n'a payé aussi et travail pour permettre que business ou li avancer pendant que ou même aider nous pour nous camper également. Donc on nous dit en pile merci déjà si vous décidez pour faire ça, nous demandons que on va rester ensemble avec nous sur réseau ça Pstars FM radio télévision. On nous finit avec une information tant qu'on fait divers, mais c'est pas ça que li. Il semble on fait divers. Oui. Un pasteur dans la commune Baltimore qui t'a goumé avec un volet qui venait pour le prendre machine. Vous comprenez? Yo jeune monsieur yo arrêté quand même. Mais c'est parti goumé entre deux monsieur ça yo, bataille une vidéo l'autre à terre parce que a montré que c'est pas prêcher le prêcher l'évangile seulement, il a défendre tête et tout. Il a bataille avec on qui vient pour voler machine. C'est dans la commune ça t'est arrivé. Merci tout le monde. N'allez l'en tourner nous va ba ou l'autre information concernant le département de justice là. Qui lui-même a investigué sous ancien directeur FBI là, M. Conny, nous connaît dans l'élection qui était sorti un rapport contre Hillary Clinton et qui était parlé tout des affaires laptop côté que il était dit que la Russie était participé dans la campagne pour aider Donald Trump à remporter l'élection yo. Gagné ancien directeur CIA, M. Brennan, qui lui-même tout dans collimateur département de justice américain Kounia là. Et gagner une quantité l'autre. Par exemple, docteur Joe Biden, ancien président, que il traîné devant une commission chambre députés qui plaidait 5e amendement, il plaidait fif. Je ne vais pas faire aucune déclaration. OK? Et nous connaissons les affaires plaider fif ça, qui ça qu'il veut dire pour une série de monde. L'année tournée nous va parler en plus de sujet ça sur réseau pour la puissance de FM radio télévision. Nous remercions, n'allez pas